Welcome to the Independence House workshop on boundaries. My name is Deirdre Deere Sullivan, and I'm a counselor and advocate working out of our Orleans office with victims and survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. Thank you for watching this training series. We hope that it benefits the important work that you do in the world. I just want to take a moment and tell you a little bit about the Independence House. We are Cape Cod's leading resource, counseling, and advocacy center to address and prevent domestic and sexual violence. We promote safe and healthy relationships, and we are empowerment-based. We also provide counseling and advocacy for children, teens, and adults. We have an emergency shelter, and we offer court and legal advocacy and support in all the courts on Cape Cod. And these workshops are part of our prevention, education, and outreach programming. Oh, we also have the contacts for CORD here. CORD is the Cape Organization for the Rights of the Disabled. Couple objectives for today. We hope that participants will leave feeling confident in their ability to provide members with the tools that they need to advocate for themselves and their safety. Our hope is that participants will have a better understanding of what boundaries are and why they are important for your clients and members. So, definitions of boundaries. Some of this comes from an author, Nedra Glover Tawwab, and she wrote a book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. So a boundary is an expressed need or expectation. I think that's a great definition of a boundary. Just simply expressed needs and expectations. And boundaries teach others how to be in relationship with you. And boundaries teach you how to be in relationship with others. So they're crucial. They're important. They're at the root of self-care. Another way that we tend to look at boundaries is like imaginary lines between what we're comfortable with and what we're not comfortable with. And it's important to remember that just as each of us have boundaries, everybody else has boundaries too. So each of us get to decide what we're comfortable with and what we're not comfortable with. We've broken up boundaries into 6 basic types, just to help us talk about them a little more specifically. There are emotional boundaries, which refer to a person's feelings and emotions. Violations of emotional boundary include somebody belittling, criticizing, or invalidating the feelings of another. And healthy emotional boundaries include having limits on what we share as far as personal information and when to share and how much to share. There's also mental boundaries, which refer to a person's thoughts or ideas. Each of us have the freedom to have our own thoughts, beliefs, values, and opinions. And then we have material boundaries, which are boundaries around possessions or money, when and how they can be used. They set limits on what you'll share with others. And also respecting what others share with you. We've got physical boundaries, which are around personal space and physical touch. They have to do with proximity to one another, how close or how far. We talk about somebody's bubble. We all have different physical boundaries. We have different areas that we're comfortable with letting others into. It speaks to touch, public displays of affection, and even comments about appearance or sexuality fall into this category of physical boundaries. Then there's time and energy boundaries. That refers to how a person uses their time and how they respect the time of others. So violations around time boundaries, maybe when someone's just demanding too much time of another, or maybe somebody's always showing up late. So that would be about a time energy kind of boundary. And then there's digital boundaries, which is a really big category these days and a really important category to talk about with our clients and members. Anything around social media, tagging others, following others, how we communicate on text, how much texting is enough, is not. What do we talk about on text, and what do we save for a personal face-to-face conversation? And how we use our phone and apps. And it also, digital boundaries involve how we use other people's phones or computers too, or if we let others use our phone or our technology. So boundaries, the umbrella of boundaries includes a lot of different things, and really getting into the specifics of it with clients and members can help build an understanding of boundaries and where boundary issues can come up and where it's really important to set boundaries. And coming back to the definition of boundaries are needs or expectations that we express. So helping people get really clear about what are my boundaries in all these different areas of our lives. It's really helpful work to do. So setting boundaries. Boundaries are just about setting boundaries, means telling others what we need and expect. It's a healthy practice of self-respect and self-care. Boundaries are not meant to punish others. They're really just letting others know how to be in relationship with us. They're good things. They're not punishment. And they allow for personal growth and protection. And then there's the beautiful art of saying no, right? And many of us have to learn that, and then we have to teach others that. So no, we say in the Independence House a lot, is no is a complete sentence. No is a loving word. For many of us, saying no needs to be practiced, though, because our culture doesn't necessarily teach people how to say no, and our culture doesn't necessarily teach people how to hear no. So practicing this is vital to healthy life, to having a healthy life. Sometimes I find in the Independence House with clients that just practicing saying no, it brings up guilt and feelings of discomfort. And I like to work with people and say, that's okay. If you have those feelings of discomfort, it's just because it's new and you may have been taught a lot of other things previously. So just speaking to that, like, it's okay to be uncomfortable when you say no, when you set a boundary of no. But just keep breathing and it'll pass. So keep in mind when talking about boundaries and teaching about boundaries that everyone is different. No two people are going to have the exact same boundaries. So in that way, it can be challenging to talk about boundaries or teach boundaries to members and clients because they're always changing. And we talk about a lot, there's a spectrum of boundaries. There's porous boundaries, which are like very, very flexible, almost non-existent boundaries. And then there's very rigid boundaries, which are firm and clear and big and strong. And then in the middle, there's flexible boundaries. But all of these are appropriate depending on the case. So it's not like porous is bad or rigid boundaries are bad. Porous boundaries, if you're with someone that you trust and love and have a very safe relationship with, and it's mutual, porosity is really healthy and can be the most appropriate thing. And if you're with somebody who's crossing your boundaries or has crossed your boundaries, or you feel pressure from, a rigid boundary is a lifesaver. It's protection. It's really important. It's totally appropriate. So the whole spectrum is good to talk about. And in general, when we're working with boundaries, we want to move towards being in this flexible place so we can flex our boundaries depending on how safe we're feeling in the moment or what our needs or expectations are. And then the, most important thing I think around this boundaries workshop and what we're trying to teach our clients and members here and work with you with your clients and members is really stressing that your body is your own and only you get to decide what happens to it. That could just be written on the wall everywhere we go. Your body is your own and only you get to decide what happens to it. So, some signs of unhealthy boundaries. When we're recognized, it's important to recognize as kind of red flags. So, oversharing, falling in love with a person after just meeting them, this kind of love bombing that is a word that's going around recently, acting on the first romantic or sexual impulse, just jumping in, both feet, being distracted or occupied by a person that you just met, kind of in an addictive, compulsive kind of way, going against personal values or beliefs to please another, touching a person without asking, without consent, taking from or allowing another to take as much as from you as possible, and letting others direct your life and choices. So these are all red flags. And so when we see this kind of behavior, it could be just pointing to, oh, this, person really needs some work on boundaries, understanding what boundaries are and that they have a right to have them, and getting into this kind of training and workshops on boundaries. And then signs of healthy boundaries: appropriate touch, an understanding of consent asked, consent given, staying focused on growth, maintaining personal values despite how it makes others feel. So being willing to sit with discomfort when, we may want or expect or need something different than somebody else. Being clear about what you need or expect. Saying no, the ability to say no when you feel like a boundary is being crossed, or when you're just invited into something that you're not interested in. And trusting in your own decisions and knowing who you are and what you want. So when we see these kind of things in a person, it's just signs that this person has a sense of the importance of boundaries and is used to setting boundaries or respecting the boundaries of others. And that's what we're shooting for, aiming for. All right. So it's important to help others to understand that any behavior or action without consent is unacceptable and inappropriate. So any behavior or action without consent. This is really important and empowering work to do with our members, friends, clients, communities, in helping all of us create safer communities for all of us. It's clear that we do need a plan of what to do when boundaries are not respected or when they're crossed, because we know the statistics and we know that this happens. So this is a 3-part recipe of what you do when. Say no, say stop. You may have to yell, even if it's with someone who's in a position of authority. So using the word no and stop, using your voice, and then getting away and then telling somebody that you trust. So say no, get away, tell someone that you trust. Role playing this, I think, is crucial to really understanding it and being able to access it when we need it. We can all use practice on this. So this recipe can kind of keep it simple and hopefully be easy to remember, so that if a client or member of our communities is feeling like their boundaries aren't being respected, they're being taken advantage of, or their boundaries are being crossed, they've got something, they know what to do. So it's good to share that and practice it, role play it, so that we can utilize it and keep everybody safe. So the Independence House is your local Cape Cod resource for victims and survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. But we also want to provide you with some national resources. You may want to print these out and post them in your work areas so that you have them if you should ever need them. Thank you so much for listening and learning with us today. And thank you for the work that you do with your members and clients. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time with questions or comments, needs, or concerns. We're really happy to work together towards creating safer communities for all of us. Thank you.